what we're gonna see on the videos. Well, it's full HD and it's supposed to be full HD as well. Yeah. Make some brightness. So I'll be referring to you in some slides. So yeah, that's you can stand up and wave people. I actually believe in the meritocracy, so people have to know who did the thing.
Who they can punch.
Yes, and that's as well.
Oh, that's it.
Not all people like Leonard slides, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, actually, okay, let me just
with the announcements and so on.
just a second. I'll do a bit of.
Can I just start introducing myself?
Just a second. I did a stupid mistake that I want to rectify. And now we'll return back to screen.
Okay. Some configuration.
No. I'll tell people at the end. Yes. Yep, thank you. So just in the last minute and a half, I actually noticed that the date here was the last weekend when I was given this talk, or variation of this talk at FOSDEM. So it's kind of a DEF CONF at FOSDEM, right? So now it's the right date, at least for today, and we can start with it. So the idea for this talk actually started more than half a year ago when we gradually worked on the server side to get all the bits and pieces for the single sign-on available. And then I started looking how those pieces can be combined together to have our laptops and overall our desktops working nicely, so that there's no excuse anymore called Mac OS X to be on the desktop with Linux. It shouldn't be cool, it should just work. And I came first to GNOME Foundation at the GUADEC with this idea and a practical demos of what can be achieved with as little as possible, which show it what roadblocks we have. Now, 6 months later, we have some of those roadblocks eliminated, and it actually shows how far you can get with even a little of effort there. And some of that effort is really small one, but some of the work was groundbreaking. But let's go there. So we talk about enterprise desktop, and the GoADEC was last year quite interesting in this sense. We had 2 talks on enterprise desktop, one coming from Red Hat, one coming from SUSE. The SUSE talk was traditional enterprise desktop, mainly a Linux desktop to run your Office applications. And traditionally people think that the desktop for enterprise is actually that. You get Office applications to run, some documents to write, some presentations to show, and so on. And you are basically limited to that. Okay, there are printers that can be used to print. If they don't work, that's our fail, meaning the server guys and not the desktop people. And when desktop is enterprise Linux desktop is usually mentioned, it's in the migrations from Windows, where people try to compare how easily to use it, basically what the icons there, what is the UX experience natural for them, and so on, but not all the integration into the environment that this desktop runs with. So yeah, enterprise, but almost, yeah. I work from home, and in a sense, my local Office network, which I do have, we have Office in Finland for Red Hat, but it's the same as if I work it from home, because there's no IT support that supports that Office. We do support, we associates support it ourselves. So working from home with VPN is equal working from the Office that we have, except that I don't see my colleagues and I can be of certain freedom of what I wear or where I sit or lie. And, but at the same time, the company services that are in use or enforced to be used by employees, they also not in this certain central place. And that place is actually might be spread out over different clouds, not even the single one. And we can even have something that's inside, outside, an internal cloud, or a single machine somewhere, or provided by external providers. There are plenty of them, and I'm sure everybody can relay experience about that. And also, even if I use the corporate laptop and I have certain limitations of what I can do on it, Red Hat is very good at allowing to do open source work on the corporate laptops. And so I need to have corporate identity to sign in into corporate applications, whatever they are. They might be just, I don't know, places where somebody else brag about bacon and pizza, but still it's a corporate stuff. I have my home network, which I also need to use even from the corporate laptop if I want to print, which is my printer is there, or at the local office the printer is actually managed by the company that manages the local space. At the same time, there are plenty of social networking, and if you look at the messages that the DEF CONF organizers are putting out, they are explicitly asking you to be active on social networks, promoting your talks and talks of your colleagues and written blogs and so on. And I only have this laptop with me. So I have to have access to those social services if I want to participate and win something that they promised for the best blog about. Then I participate in multiple free software projects, so to say I have multiple hats to wear if they all fit here, but sometimes I need to kind of juggle them. But also at the same time I have governmental IDs issued to me, and sometimes I have to use those governmental IDs when talking to tax office. Luckily in Finland people don't like to talk face-to-face with the government, so the government made a perfect system where you just log in over the web using your smart cards and bank credentials. That avoids talking but it means that you have those identities to be supported on Linux to be useful. And I also have my private data. Whether it's a private data on a corporate laptop, which supposedly not to be there, it's still there. And I want to protect and share it with those whom I care about. And I kind of crazy person that wants to have access to that all at the same time. Is this a rare example? I think most of you can relate to the same story. So I work on FreeIPA, which is really a management of identities and policies. Store it in a single place and force it at the end endpoints, which those laptops are one of the example, applied locally, and it's number of different free software projects unified together in a common management framework to rule them all. So it's available in multiple distributions, slowly but surely. Most of its capabilities infiltrate stable versions. So like 2 years ago, we missed by 1 week a deadline, a freeze deadline in Debian. So Debian has FreeIPA server side, but only in testing, because we just missed a deadline. Hopefully next deadline will already be, we will be ready to that. And GNOME Foundation and GNOME as an organization runs FreeIPA as their accounting system. So all GNOME developers, they have account in account GNOME.org, which is FreeIPA. If you go there right now, you will see that it's standard FreeIPA login screen, which you will see today. So how enterprise are we? There are multiple ways of scoring. So let's score by one obvious thing, by password. If you have multiple passwords to enter, you're not enterprise. And the lower number of passwords you enter, because in an enterprise marketing materials, if you sell enterprise products, the single sign-on phrase is kind of rules them all. None of those products actually has real single sign-on, but they attempt to do it. So a typical workflow, if you're happy enough to reboot your laptop, is actually you have to sign in your local system account. So you enter a password. You jump onto virtual private network, VPN to your office environment. That might include a password and maybe a token value, one way or another, certificate, and God knows what. If your corporate environment uses Kerberos or Active Directory, you most likely will obtain the Kerberos ticket and then supply this ticket to application. Or you're supposed to use Kerberos ticket as evidence that you are who you are to those applications, and therefore go with single sign-on in those apps. But you already stroke like 3 times that password before you got to that point. And many of those enterprise apps actually do not support Kerberos. So in fact, you will have to be requested to enter a password again. So can we be really better than this? Obviously, crossing out some password entering procedures that you have to do, well, let's say every day, would probably be good. Can we really slim it down to 1 or 2? Let's see. Let's try to log in. I'm not going to run a live demo, so I have pre-recorded videos which show the same stuff. This one was done in VM, and basically I'm just trying to log on to that VM. The VM is enrolled into a FreeIPA server that I have. And the VM is actually not on the same network as I have. Therefore, I use a VPN to log on there. And as you saw, there's nothing to enter. There's no password required because I used Kerberos credentials that I obtained when I tried to log on. And those Kerberos credentials were forwarded over the Kerberos proxy through the public internet to obtain a ticket. So here is the in the second output of klist, you see the first ticket is http/. That's the ticket to my VPN service. This ticket was obtained without any credentials entering because I already had credentials. And now, as that I'm on the VPN to my internal network, I can actually run IPA commands to that IPA server, which is behind the VPN. So it's not accessible from the public internet, but it's accessible obviously on the internet, on the intranet. So this is the basic thing. We just logged on a system that is configured to be a client of FreeIPA, SSSD as a local daemon that enforces IPA policies and provides all these users and IDs. It handles logon and Kerberos keys. The logon verified over a public network using proxy for Kerberos protocol. The VPN connection based authenticates based on the Kerberos ticket that I obtained on top of ticket grants and ticket or initial ticket that I got when I log on. My credentials were entered only once in that logon screen. It's kind of a paradise, right? What I'm dreaming at night. So this Kerberos proxy, it's actually, at some time, good things come out of Microsoft. Not only in form of Hyper-V and Azure and so on, but also some real good things like this Kerberos proxy. They had this exactly the same problem with the Windows workstations for the customers. And they invented this protocol of proxying Kerberos data over HTTPS to allow to get initial ticket, then use that ticket to establish the VPN connection and use IPv6 over that VPN connection to bring together all the laptops. It happens behind the curtain. You don't see it. If your Active Directory administrator configured all this thing, you just don't see anything. It just works. But it took them a certain amount of time. I think they introduced this first in 2007 or so, and it didn't really work well until 2010 or so, because the client side needed to be updated. They needed to build IPv6 infrastructure to host all these virtual VPN environments and so on. So Nathaniel McCallum implemented this protocol for MIT Kerberos and as a separate Kerberos proxy server, and then we integrated one with, I think Christian did this work to integrate it in FreeIPA 4.2. So now if you deploy FreeIPA 4.2, you get the Kerberos proxy enabled by default. It's on the same HTTPS port like the management interface that IP runs, which is neat. You just do it and your public network can be used to connect and get there. GNOME guys are really spearheading the deployment. 2 years ago, once we introduced the Kerberos proxy in FreeIPA 4.0, I think even before that, they simply deployed it for their own needs to allow their developers to use GSSAPI for SSH connections. And that is to replace the SSH keys access to make sure that you have single sign-on, but you still have pretty serious security over that one. Ticket is expiring over some time. SSH keys, people have habit to keep them decades instead of rotating them regularly. And on the VPN side, last DevConf, we talked with Nikos from the Open Connect, and we persuaded him that it's actually an interesting problem, and he solved it in less than 1 week. So Open Connect client supports GSSAPI negotiation since Fedora 22, and the Open Connect server supports its own Kerberos proxy. So you can use actually Open Connect server as your proxy. That's what I do. And my VPN runs runs Kerberos proxy at the same time as the VPN itself. OpenVPN does not support GSSAPI, and its developers have interesting mixture of understanding why GSSAPI is interesting, and they think that it's kind of not the technology that you should use. You should use X509 certificates. We'll leave this them.
That's not quite true.
Well, I mean, there are some stories you can really look up using the search engines, the responses that I referred to, and they did not change in the last 5 or 7 years.
It's been on something on a side project I have had since I started playing with it in 2015, and that's actually the first time we actually thought about GSSAPI.
So in 2005, people were asking on OpenVPN development list for support for GSSAPI, and it was negatively responding all the time. IPsec has this standardized for IK1, if I understood, Paul.
It's an older version, but yeah. Apparently Microsoft has done a few proxies as well for IP2, so that's the one we've been focusing on.
Yeah, so it's in the works now, and Libris one would get it hopefully this year. So there's improvement compared to what we had even 6 months ago. Could we do stronger authentication at the VPN edge? Because you don't want to just allow everyone to connect into the enterprise with ticket that was obtained with a single factor. So yeah, with Kerberos 1.14, which is out, we have support for so-called authenticator indicators. They are already, like Nathaniel found this week, they already put the OTP indicator if you use it to two-factor authentication to log in. But we don't have enforcement yet.
This is coming very soon. It's high on my priority list.
Yes. So, two-factor authentication is what we support in FreeIPA for HOTP, TOTP types of tokens. So things like YubiKey with HOTP, TOTP token written in it. Or you can use FreeOTP client on Android or iOS, or you have some BlackBerry stuff even, or it's outdated.
No, BlackBerry's switching to Android, so.
So yeah, that's the cheating stuff. Yep. And the two-factor auth is enforced for users on the Kerberos side. So once you try to log in, if you have the two-factor enforced and one factor is disabled, then you will not be able to get Kerberos ticket unless you really use. There are some problems on how to make it sure without the clients that know how to deal with it. So SSSD knows how to deal with it. A regular key in it doesn't. You need to be, you need to do some tricks. So how this works? This is FreeOTP. You can install it and use, and I guess many of you are using if you're in Red Hat. So let's try to see it. Here is the same session that I had, right? So this poor user has been a member of group USB access. This is just to allow UDEV to map permissions to allow the programming the USB token. And I'm doing this programming actually in the console just because we don't have, from the browser, we don't have access to USB devices. And that's probably for a good thing. And it also means that having some nice desktop UI integrated with IPA that knows about the features like these tokens and is able to program the token without referring to the actual commands would be very nice to have. Nathaniel actually implemented the YubiKey support in just one night.
It's like 25 lines of code.
Yeah.
So write your own and we'll merge it.
Yeah.
It's really
So now I have the token, and suppose I inserted the actual token into the machine. Let's pretend that this is really show. I closed the screen, and now what you see is that instead of a password prompt, I get a first factor prompt. I did not change anything. I just locked the machine, and when GDM asks me for the prompt, what to enter, SSSD sees that the Kerberos server actually is responding with the I need additional information kind of response. And that means that it also returns a prompt that I can show. We are a bit weirder, so we told them, called them first factor, second factor. Of course, people who want to have them named properly can file bugs and talk to the people who.
So sorry, one is your password and the other is your YubiKey, or?
One is the password, another is token generated by YubiKey. Exactly same can happen if I load the FreeOTP and have a token generated. Let me launch FreeOTP.
So the YubiKey acts like a keyboard, and every time you press a button, it just writes characters
I know.
Yeah.
keyboard interface, and you can think the hash base.
So if I press on this one, then it generates a code and I enter the same code. YubiKey is just a keyboard in reality.
Actually, we're going to be adding. iOS already has it, but we can't get Apple to release it. To send the code from the phone to the
Yeah.
computer, typed in over Bluetooth.
So using Bluetooth as a keyboard, your phone can be keyboard, and FreeOTP then inserts the code into your laptop. Do we have all the systemd parts fixed actually?
We still have some open bugs in Blues upstream. So if you know a Blues developer, please come talk to me.
Okay, so now I entered the first factor and second factor, and I logged in, and looking at the credentials, the Kerberos credentials, you can see that I actually have a fresh initial ticket, which means that this ticket actually has now authentication indicator saying that I did the two-factor step. We don't have on the client side in the Kerberos, actually in GSSAPI libraries, way to pick up this indicator and see and verify that it's actually valid and signed by all the parties. It's coming some point later, but it's there. So the basics are there. Now what I can do with it, right, with this token. Okay, coming back. Here's a summary. We got the one-time password programmed to YubiKey. We handle login, and SSSD notices that there is a pre-authentication request from the Kerberos server saying that I need more info, and what info, and it pushes the GDM to show that. We log into the system, verify it over a public network using a Kerberos proxy forwards into the actual KDC. Then we got the ticket. First factor is provided to GDM to unlock the GNOME passwords and key storage. If we don't do this, on the first logon ever in your system, your GNOME keyring will be encrypted with a password that is for sure never will repeat again, and you will not be able to decrypt it. So what we do is that we split these prompts. We provided infrastructure to actually handle prompts separately, exactly for this reason, for a small thing like reusable key store, secret store.
How does this work when you're offline?
If you are offline, SSSD has support for that. It knows that you are offline, you cannot reach the identity server, and it only asks you for the first factor. It asks for the first factor and then does the hash comparison with the stored hash of the hash of hash, basically, of a local of the password that was used once. You cannot log in offline to the system that you never log on to. But if you log it once and you have this enabled, it's not enabled by default.
And what happens when you are offline? You log in and then you connect to the net. What happens then?
At the first attempt when the password will be needed, it will be upgraded to the online use, and you will get the request for the password, for the token. Again, credentials were entered only once. Now, if I have them, what I can do with them? Almost everything. So I can authenticate even against the wall, if the wall understands this protocol. I can obtain SAML assertion or any other equal thing that basically reports back what this identity is. I can access network file systems. That's the first thing that started like 15 or more, even more years ago. I can display properties of the tickets. I can renew tickets. I can choose what principal to use. And to authenticate with GSSAPI. Now that's the interesting part. The Epiphany, the GNOME web browser, does not support GSSAPI since 2009, when its support was removed from LibSoap. This is the famous bug that's still being fixed.
It's almost fixed.
Yeah.
Do not spoil my presentation, please. So WebKit GTK is unusable for SAML or to interactions OpenID, even if you want to involve in Kerberos. One cannot use, for example, Google Apps with GSSAPI and GNOME Online Accounts. No single sign-on as a result of it. Basically, that's it. Can we do better than that? I would say yes. So let's look at the hacked version done by Tomasz Popela and David Woodhouse from Intel. Now I'll be fast because I will be showing just demos, right? So I got login, I got the ticket, and now with that ticket I'm logging into the FreeIPA web UI using the GSSAPI. The browser that I use is Epiphany. It's a standard Fedora 23 with hacked LibSoap and WebKit GTK packages. Now, the next step, I go in GNOME Online Accounts and enter my email for this user, which, as you can see in the background, and Google then accepts it because I have paired my FreeIPA install with the identity provider called Epsilon, which supports pulling data from IPA, including email information, and pushing that data out to the service provider. And Google Apps now service provider to this. So I logged in into the docs, and you can actually see that that's me. Once the cursor goes there, yeah, that's the same email. as the one in the database. You have to pre-create users with within the Google Apps, but at no point Google sees any credentials you use. They get signed assertion from your identity provider that is enough for them. So what else? The Google Calendar bug is, that's why you see this kind of, the screen is not really good there, right?
It's a bug with the browser.
It's the bug with the browser for the user agent string, which turns the Google Apps to serve you
The mobile browser.
mobile version, yes. And you can see that I have all the, in GNOME Online Accounts, I have all this stuff basically enabled for use of the, well, session cookie that was obtained through the Kerberos credentials. Okay, that's the work that we hope to get into GNOME 3.20. Can we do better than that? Yes. So that's exactly what happened here. The Google Apps accepted it. You can get more from Patrick's talk tomorrow about the same time, about Epsilon. And he will show some of these demos and his own demos as well. This should work with any identity provider that knows how to utilize SSSD features that expand beyond POSIX attributes, because email is not a POSIX attribute, and this is what Google cares about.
Just a little implementation detail. Does logging out work?
Yes.
Okay, good. I hate when you log out and immediately log
Yes.
back in.
Yes. I think it had created a lot of issues for Epsilon guys when logout was implemented. Yes, so what we can do in the GNOME Online Accounts, a lot. We can visualize and see the properties, but unfortunately those properties, they are not really well visible right now. I will skip parts of it. We can have multiple credentials used, and the one that you want to use can be selected from the console using kswitch command, but we would like to have something more user-friendly for your definition of user. And we can have ticket renewals, and that's now a big problem that everybody complains, whoever uses GNOME with Kerberos. The ticket is expired, but nobody pops up a message for that or does not initiate it. So I talked with Debarshi on it, and hopefully we get this fixed at some point. The browsers have their own problems. So Firefox, for example, needs manual configuration, but at least it's accessible for the users. Chrome requires system-wide configuration or command line parameters you have to specify all the time. With the fixed libsoup, WebKit, GTK, Epiphany will just work against any HTTPS website as much as Conqueror does already. But the Conqueror HTML engine, for example, is not enough for Google Apps and for the other applications. And there are some limits that you need to be aware of, like GSSAPI flow is synchronous, so you have to do it outside of your UI thread, but that's not news for UI developers. But any kind of practical use of it, right? The Google Apps is one thing. You probably don't want to do Google Apps for your home if you want to stay under the budget, right? So let's do some practical thing. It's 2 minutes demo. I skipped one demo in this one, and I'm showing another one. So this is actually, I'm becoming an administrator from Active Directory. This Active Directory has established cross-forest trust relations with FreeIPA. And now I will use these credentials over Epiphany to log in into the own cloud instance that I have, and that works with the Epsilon. With help of the Epsilon, it accepts the GSSAPI authentication. So now what will happen, it takes a bit of time, that this Windows administrator is actually part of my own cloud environment. It does not exist in FreeIPA. It purely exists in the Active Directory that I have somewhere under the table of my office. And you can actually see, I will get it a bit larger here and scroll it, that the cloud ID is a fully qualified username, including the realm or AD domain. So this is something you can do, and practically, yes, this is a setup that I have hacked on cloud to basically accept SAML assertions coming from Epsilon and auto-create users if they are coming this way. Again, no need to enter password. From the first logon with the two-factor authentication towards use of this application, I'm there, right? If I unpause, we can see that we should be able to go into we can see that tickets were obtained. First, the initial ticket for Active Directory realm, then the cross-forest ticket for accessing IPA resources, and then the ticket for Epsilon. So we got through the whole stages and finally got to the on-cloud system. And credentials were entered only once. That's what I want to see in, let's say, Fedora 25 for majority of services that support GSSAPI there. And I need your help. Actually, this is not existing in the standard own cloud community edition. Own cloud company sells this as their enterprise edition feature, so now I'm kind of commodizing that feature. And even more, because they don't have support for Active Directory trusts and going through it, we do. Yes, and we want to have GNOME Online Accounts working well for all SAML-enabled services, not just the way how it only works for Google apps now, but doesn't work for own cloud within the GNOME Online Accounts. FreeIPA also has support for user certificates, so you can actually plug the hole and have your own environment at home or your small company, that way you trust your infrastructure. So I'm skipping this because that's what I showed. You can control your own infrastructure. That's the very important part of it. You can improve user experience. We become older and older, and we don't remember all these techie steps anymore. Well, 20, 40 years in future, is going to be interesting challenge to every single one of us here. And finally, somebody can profit with it, not only Red Hat. Thank you. I'm here and today and tomorrow you can come and ask. I don't think we have any time left, otherwise I get kicked completely by the guys who do the code. Great. Yes.